Hey everyone, it is Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs out of Eagle, Nebraska. Ouch! Let's get rid of that. Let's replace it with this. Stay tuned and let me show you how I created it. Okay, so the color I use to fog is I'm using hammered copper, I'm using metallic chestnut, I'm using oil rubbed bronze, and I'm also using champagne bronze. The customer's going to have a hammered copper drop-in sink, and that's why I wanted to get some copper in there. And then I wanted to get a lot of good color on the rock edge. So I'll speed this up while I'm getting the project fogged, but it's really important to fog your edges. I also fog the top surface just to add some additional layer of color. And then on your backsplashes, make sure you get those fogged as well, including that what's going to be the bottom edge of the backsplash. So when it's stood up, you don't have any of your color poking through. So make sure you fog really well. All right, bathroom vanity here, and so we're going to start off. I have 32 ounces of clear. I have a rock edge going around both of these edges here, and of course the backsplashes, which had to have 45s so they would fit properly. I have fogged the board. Now I'm going to apply clear coat, and this technique uses primarily just spray paints. So let's get some clear put down. Now, because the project is fairly small and as odd shaped as it is, I'm not going to use a trowel to put my clear coat down. I'm just going to use my hand. And I do know that I have my project very level, so I know it's going to self-level very well. You'll see here that I'm getting my edges, I call it greased, but I want to make sure anytime I'm using spray paint to fog my edges, I want to make sure that I grease those edges as soon as I get epoxy down onto the surface. And the reason for that is the epoxy can actually, at times, reactivate that spray paint. And if the edges are dry, as that epoxy starts to run down the edge, it'll go down kind of in drips or runs. And when it does that, and it activates that spray paint, you can end up with runs that are very difficult to remove later. So what I'm doing here is I'm explaining that with my backsplashes, I'm going to have, if anything, I want my backsplashes to lean backwards just a little bit if they're going to flow one way or the other, just to make sure I know that epoxy is going to flow over that back edge. All right, so this is the main part of when you walk in the door. This is the part that you see. That goes against the toilet. So, of course, we want that to look good while you're sitting on the toilet, right? This part over here to my right, over here, is an area that is not seen as much, but obviously when you're standing in front of the sink, you've got this whole area that you're able to see. So, let's go, if I run off that way a little bit, somewhat off that direction, go because I want some to flow over the edge here. I really don't want to go this way, so I think we'll go So the colors I'm using here is I'm using titanium white, which is a just resin paste, and then I'm also using white pearl, which is also just resin. And I'm using the two of those, and you can see I'm putting those down before I lay down my spray paint colors because I want some white in there, but I only want that to kind of, I'm going to mention this a little bit later, to kind of peekaboo through my colors. So I'm getting that laid down, and you can see I just added some titanium white on top of the pearl just to have some brightness to it. All right, here's where the fun begins and here's where the magic happens. I'm actually using the same spray paint colors that I use to fog the surface with, which is, these are all Rust-Oleum spray paints, but I'm using oil rubbed bronze, gloss black with that funky top, khaki, champagne bronze, and also hammered black. And I'm getting the spray paints put down onto the surface, and I'm putting it on fairly heavy because I don't want it to dry right away. And I'm only going to do this in sections because when I put those spray paints down wet, I want them to remain wet until I'm able to take my tongue depressor, just like you can see that I'm doing here, and basically I'm just working those spray paints into the epoxy. But it's really important to not overwork with your tongue depressor or stir stick, whatever you're using, and use the flat of the stick, not the edge. And I know I'm going to mention that again later. But once I get those spray paints down in there, I'm just going to run my stick through there, and then I'm going to go on to the next section. Look at that lower left corner right there of what I just put down. Keep an eye on that because that's going to take some time to develop, and that's what's really, really important when using spray paints like this. Is give that a chance to develop. So remember to keep an eye on that area, and I'm probably going to bring that up again. And I do have some different views. So we've got this view and then kind of an overhead. And then see also how I'm putting those spray paints down very randomly. I'm not running kind of the tiger stripes, right? So I just want to put those down, and I'm layering some of those colors because as I run my tongue depressor through there, it's going to mix those colors up. See that white, how it kind of peekabooed through there? That was my whole intention of putting a white down first and then putting the spray paint down and even putting the spray paints directly over that white paint. Now here's an overhead view to give you a little bit better of an idea. But now it's at the top right corner, that area that I first started to work. And a little bit later on, as the video goes on, you'll be able to see how that changes and how it evolves, especially when we get to the end and get to the flyover. So I'm not using my spray paints. Again, I'm putting them down randomly, and I am trying to put them down in about the same order each time. It's not extremely important, but it just tries to kind of keeps things uniform. That khaki color is one that it adds a really cool contrast. And it blends in with the other colors, and you'll see how I just kind of work it in with the other colors. There's that white again, how it kind of peekabooed, through there. But this is a really cool technique, and as you can see, it's not difficult. As long as you've got your 3 ounces per square foot of your clear coat, it's up to you if you want to put down, like I did, some white epoxy down below that, or you could use some other colors, and you can use any colors that you want with the spray paints. Some of the, like the metallics, like what I'm using right there, I think that's the, there is another color I missed in there. And I can't remember what it was, but I mentioned it earlier on in the video. But anyway, the metallics they're kind of a thinner, more runny or watery type spray paint, and that really helps kind of fight with the other types of spray paints that are used. So there's the hammered black, the gloss black, the khaki, the metallics. They all kind of fight with each other, and that's where those effects come from. Now take a look at that upper right corner again, and you can see how over time, little by little, it just continues to develop. And then all I'm doing is basically the same thing across the entire project. So take a good look, take a mental snapshot of what it looks like now, and then it's amazing how it's going to look when I get to the end. So now we're back at the other view, and I'm just finishing up on that left side, and I'll stay here for just a little bit as I continue to work it. And you'll be able to see, you can kind of see a little bit on that lower left corner, even left of where I'm working my tongue depressor right now. By the way, did you notice the amount? Look at that stir stick. There's only paint on the very, very end of it, and I'm just using the flat of it, again, just to kind of move those around. Now, occasionally I'll kind of step back and kind of take a look and see if I've got all the colors in there that I want, and maybe add more if I need to. But for the most part, I'm just kind of working my way little by little across the project. And again, I'm doing this in sections, and the biggest reason for that is I don't want those spray paints to dry. Now, if those spray paints do dry, that gives you another type of effect, because as the spray paint's dry and you run your stick through there, it'll kind of crackle and give you kind of a crackly look. What I'm doing right there on that bottom corner is I'm scraping up some of the white that I had that has dripped off the surface, or if I have some left in my cup. Because I wanted some white, I'm taking some right there. I want some white to run over that edge. And again, that's the edge where the toilet's at. So I want that to look good when the customer's sitting there, right? All right, so let's go on. All right. So far, I like it. So now that we're back to the other view, look at that area I was telling you to keep an eye on. If you have this on a larger screen, you'll really be able to see. But as I run my stick through there, see how you can see a lot of the stick lines? But look how that's developing, which is now down at the bottom left corner. But look how that's starting to develop. And it's going to continue to do that as I continue to work the project, and as the paint continues to kind of fight, so to speak, with the epoxy and with the different types of spray paints used. You'll really notice when I get to the end and we get to the flyover. What I'm doing right there is, okay, so that area on the left, that's where the toilet is. So I know that's where the customer is going to sit and look at that a lot. So I really want to have a lot of visual interest coming down that corner and coming down that one side. It's just something that I overthink, but you know, it's important to the customer. And then here we'll go back to the overhead view, and you can watch how I'm finishing up getting the spray paints down and getting that moved around with my stick. And then that's pretty much going to end that. And then we'll go back to the other view and we'll wrap this up. Oh, that looks really good. Oh, that looks really good. That way the epoxy can flow down between the edges of where the backsplash and the countertop is, and they don't get stuck together. I guess this has become a song I like to sing, but I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. I've tried other epoxy, but I just didn't like it yet. I love what Stone Coat does with my additives. I like it, I love it, I want some more of it. All right, enough of the singing. Let's do a flyover. Let's take a look at this. Bear with me on the shaky camera work here. Now that side right there that you're looking at, that's still developing. Okay, so it's only been about 15 minutes since I spread the colors out, but they are starting to develop. And you can see even on that right side that I just finished, you can see how the colors are starting to soften. They're starting to open up. There's some cells that are being created in there, and I'm getting a really, really good flow around my rock edge. That again is the real big importance of when I put down that clear coat, of how I made sure that I had a good coverage around my rock edge. But look how that's flowing down that rock edge. There's nothing more that I need to do to that. It really, really turned out cool. And then of course, when I got to this corner piece, that's the most visible piece, is that right there. So that right there is where I was adding some more white. I really wanted that to be some visual interest. That's right where the customer walks into the bathroom. That's where the customer sees when he's sitting on the toilet. You know, you think about that stuff when you're doing countertops of what is going to be the most visible. There's that left side. Look how much that's developed from what it looked like when I first ran my stick through there. So it's really, really important not to overwork it. Just run your stick through there a few times to get that, to get those paints worked into the epoxy. But just look at the effects that you get. I mean, it's amazing. I'm not an artist. I can't draw that stuff out. but just working with it and practicing with it and trying some different things, it just absolutely turned out amazing. Customer was blown away, was beyond their expectations, especially with what you saw, what the bathroom looked like before with that laminate. Look at those edges. The edges and the corners, man, I'm really, really pleased with it. The rock edge turned out really good. The customer wanted a little bit more of an aggressive rock edge, and so that's what I put on there, was a little bit more aggressive. But man, really, really pleased with how it turned out, and yeah. So here's some last final looks. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please click the subscribe button for upcoming tutorials. And please watch for, I will have a video on how I applied the Ultimate Top Coat Natural, which is the matte finish. Thanks again. This is Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs, and I appreciate your support. Take care, y'all. We'll see you next time.